Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Juno New Origins, where we are currently on a trajectory to intercept Volko at this point. And here we are over Drew. This has gone very well, this particular trajectory. So this is our current setup here, and if we set Volko as our target, you can see 173 megometers. I would like to definitely dial that in a bit. So we're going to hop into the sphere of influence of Juno here, which we currently are. And at this point, we're going to want to very soon now make a small adjustment burn. So what do we want to do in this burn? Well, let's do a little bit of experimenting and find out. Definitely not an inclination change. Okay, so do we need to dial it in this way a little bit? Let's turn the sensitivity a bit down. Yeah, this is what I want to see. Okay, that was a little too much. We overshot. Okay, 235 kilometers. That's pretty decent. Let's crank this sensitivity right on down. And let's dial this in a little closer. I wanted it to be like 40 or 50 kilometers. Let's put it right down the middle, 44.4. I like it. This is 14.4 meters per second. Let's do it. So we're going to advance up to there. This should be high burn accuracy. Very, very, very minute burn here. Okay. This puts us at 17.7. That's a little bit too much. So we're going to need to hop over. We're currently on retrograde. We're going to have to hop over to prograde and do a very, very tiny prograde burn here. We overshot this from the maneuver node, so that's understood. It's very, very sensitive when we're at this point. That's 78.8. I overshot it again. I rose it up and then cut it off immediately, but it doesn't always immediately cut off, so I had to press the button a second time there. Okay, let's just try this one more time here. Once again, it doesn't always cut off immediately. Okay, we're gonna have to pull this back. Let's try this again. I'm gonna call that good enough. 50.9 kilometers seems good. So at this point, we're going to warp in all the way up over here. Fantastic. Now, the real question that I have right now is, how's our heat levels? Spicy is the answer. Okay, that's understood. We're going to warp in up over this direction. Oh, that's unfortunate. That's very unfortunate. Our lights exploded from excessive heat damage. That makes me very sad. Well, okay. We're going to warp on in a little bit closer here. And where is our encounter actually going to happen here? Let's just warp forward this way until we switch spheres of influence. Yeah, right there. So there's tier 1 of Volko flybys exceeding 1. We entered the SOI of Volko. Out of curiosity, 1.8% of players have that achievement. Okay. You know, if you want to get some rare achievements, this game is kind of the way to go, it seems. So Volko is, of course, very spicy in terms of its heat. I want to focus on Volko. Apparently that's complicated. Let's just go ahead and do a planned burn at periapsis, and this is going to be a braking burn. And because we're in so very close, this should be relatively efficient. Yeah. So you can see here, this is going to be, to circularize this is going to be about 1 kilometer per second. I mean, it's not the most efficient thing in the world, but it's fairly efficient. Now I'm noticing we have 0 fuel here. This is not real. We have fuel. We have 26%. Okay. Let's go ahead and execute this burn then. Okay, our other lights are taking heat damage. I don't think all of our lights have exploded yet. So at this point, this engine isn't working. And I don't know why. The game appears to have bugged on us. And we're way too late in this burn now. So, why is this engine not working? It was definitely working before, and now it's not. The game thinks we have 0% fuel. We can't switch to a different control part. Is it because our batteries are dead? Oh, that's why. It's because our batteries are dead. How did our batteries die, though? Hang on. That shouldn't be a thing either. Because we have solar panels here, and we just didn't use batteries for a really long time on the way in. That's strange. That's very strange. Okay, well, let's just head on out here then. And we'll see when we start getting battery charge again. Recharge rate of 0. Why are we not getting any battery charge right now? Are we over-temperatured on our solar panel array? I don't know that that's how solar panel arrays work. Okay, hang on. We can change our pitch. And these are now pointing right into the sunlight. And you can see temperature is definitely going up on them because they're directly in sunlight. But they are not charging. But yet, we do have some battery. This must be temperature related. Okay. This has to be temperature related. So I'm going to look that up. Let's see here. Juno New Origins solar panel temperature limit. What do we got here? Yes. It loses efficiency at lower temperatures, but efficiency can exceed 100% at high temperatures before it starts to burn. That's interesting. So at high temperatures, we should be experiencing increased efficiency, not decreased. However, in real life, solar panels do lose efficiency at high temperature. So that's understood. Now, obviously, we're in a hyperbolic trajectory here. We needed to burn back here in order to enter orbit. So this is problematic for us in a number of ways. In a number of ways, indeed. I'm assuming that this is a temperature issue. So how can we control temperature in the future? Well, that's an interesting question. We could simply increase the amount of battery power we bring. That's an option. Yeah, I'm 99% sure that that's what's going on here. So this temperature is not really going to change very much, right? But we're receiving 0% pointing efficiency as well, which I find odd. The panel efficiency, I can kind of understand. So we definitely regenerated some amount of power when we came out, right? But it wasn't enough. What I'm wondering right now is, if we do this, will we generate any power at all? What if we tumble this? with the idea being that we lower the temperature of the solar panels. So we do something like this. We let the temperature drop to somewhere around there, and then we bring it back. No. Interesting. That's very interesting. I would not have expected this to work in this way, for sure. Wait. We're getting a recharge rate. Holding the panels obliquely, or this panel specifically obliquely, is giving us a recharge rate. Okay, so what if we did something like this? Now, this is going to lose a lot of efficiency, obviously, but what if we did something like this, and we're now at panel efficiency 5%. This one here, yeah, this has to be temperature related. It has to be. Okay, so we would need to put in a burn somewhere like up here, right? But at this point, it's going to be kind of rough. That's for sure. This would put us in orbit, but just barely. Well, it wouldn't be in orbit exactly. Something kind of like this, but we'd need to adjust it up here and then adjust it down here again. Indeed. So let's go ahead and warp up to somewhere up over like this way, right? I want to close this, and I'd like to just warp for a bit and let our batteries recharge. So it's this one here that is currently doing some amount of charging. Now, I'd like to rotate us out this way and see about raising up that amount of recharge rate. Okay, I think we're starting to lose some efficiency here. Yeah, as that temperature increases, we're losing efficiency. But we can hold right about here. Okay, so we're going to do that. We're going to hold right about here. And I'd like to warp to somewhere around here. So that's going to boost up our power levels somewhat. And let's check in on how these solar panels are doing. This one's too hot. This one is just barely running right now. So I'd like to... No, that's causing it to be too hot. Okay, let's let that temperature drop a bit. Still too hot. Okay, for the time being, let's just lock to the planned burn. And the question is, can we produce enough of a burn to do that? So these solar panels are both way too hot right now, but I want to change our roll orientation to be something like this. To shield this solar panel as much as possible. That's not really preventing it. Okay. I don't know that we're going to be able to get a 62-second burn out of 7% battery. That's the issue here right now. Well, let's give it a go. Okay, so we're going to light this up and see how it goes. We might actually get that amount of burn out of this. We're down to 6% battery. Keep in mind, battery will be far less important once we're done with this stage. 5% battery. It's going to be close. We're down to 4% battery. It's going to be really close. Okay, 3% battery. We're nearly in orbit here. 2% battery remaining. 1% battery. We are in orbit. Okay. Now we're going to have to adjust this for sure. We're going to need to do a planned burn at the apoapsis. This was not an ideal efficiency burn, that's for sure. And we're going to need to bring this up to... I want to bring this up to about 40 kilometers. About like that. So that's 0.48 meters per second. That's very, very minor. Now, what we need to do is we need to orient in such a way so that we are something like this. And this solar panel can cool down. This solar panel here, I'm going to retract, and let's see if that causes it to cool down. A little bit, but not all that much. Okay, so this solar panel, it's sitting at, well, 357 degrees Celsius right now. That's rather a lot. I'd like to angle us up over this way to continue to drop that temperature. There we go. We just need to get this thing into a position where it is partially effective. Enough to get us at least a trickle of power. That's all we need for now. Okay, so we probably need to rotate this a little bit further to maybe like 35 degrees. Yes, this is looking decent. Very decent. If we rotate it any further than this, what happens? That starts to go back up. Okay. What about 30? Seems like it's around 32 is around the sweet spot. Okay. Then we can just rotate it a little bit. And boost up that recharge rate. Yeah. That looks good. Somewhere around here. So that's going to get us a good amount of recharge. I'm just seeing if we can squeeze out a little bit more charge out of this. Almost up to 8 kilowatts. That's a lot of power, to be honest. 9 kilowatts. Surprising how much we're getting out of this. I'm very surprised by this. Starting to go back up on the heat. Okay. So somewhere around 11 kilowatts is about what we've got. Okay, we're going to need to rotate this back over this way. And just try to hold position about here. This is what we've got. So that's fine. If we go in here, we can see we've already built up a fair amount of watt hours. So that's looking fantastic. Absolutely great. So what we need to do now, of course, is we need to make our way out to here. So I'm going to warp us out a ways here to about here. And I want to see, yeah. So we're no longer recharging, but look at how much power we got there. And yeah, I want to be locking to this planned burn for the moment. We're watching this temperature drop. As long as we get our battery banks recharged, I'm happy. So we're going to need to rotate this guy into our shadow. I don't love this angling. But to be honest, this is enough. So for right now, let's go ahead and warp our way out to about here. Okay, so we definitely had a fair... Okay, there goes a light. We had a fair amount of drain there. Are our lights on? I don't know if they are. If they are, that would explain a lot about what's happening here. Regardless, we have charge going on here, so let's go ahead and warp on through here, and we can see, yeah, that filled us all the way up. It did drain down a little bit more, but I want to get this burn completed. Another light exploded. That should be all of those lights exploded. We've now entered Volco orbit. That looks good. And now, of course, what we need to do is we need to try to circularize this orbit. So a planned burn at the periapsis here, and that's going to be something like this. So what do we have that could possibly be draining power at this point? Well, we've got our gyroscope, which should not be draining any power. And that's kind of it, to be honest. Okay, so we currently don't have power generation happening. Let's get this thing turned a little bit like this. In fact, where is our maneuver lock? Oh, we're right on it. Okay. So that is noted. Let's go ahead and warp a little bit here. I'm watching. Yeah, we still have a power drain. So what's draining the power? I mean, the command disk is not using any... Well, it does use 60 watts, I suppose. We could put it into, like, hibernation, but I'm not sure if we can reactivate it after that, so that's definitely a concern. I'm wondering about the temperature of this solar panel. Our issue is actually our orientation right now. So Juno is somewhere. Should be like up this way, right? Yeah, it's right there. So our orientation is slightly awkward here. What we need to do is we need to orient ourselves down like this. Maybe not quite this much. Like -32 at this time. Just so that we have some recharge happening, right? It doesn't really matter how much recharge, as long as it's some. Let's go ahead and warp here. And that filled up all of our battery. We're still recharging. Looks good. We'll warp here. Okay, now we're starting to lose some of that efficiency. So let's bring this up to be about here. Well, actually, it's the rotation here, but we are still generating power. As long as we're generating at least 60 watts, that's what's necessary. So let's warp into here for right now. Okay, and we've built up a good amount of speed. So I want to lock to our maneuver node right now. There we go. And I'm keeping an eye on our temperature gauge here. Okay. Well, that's awkward, but this is only 22.7 minutes. We should be okay. So we'll come on in over here, and we'll fire up this engine. There we go. And let's enter into orbit. This will be an absolutely no problem orbital insertion here. We are going to be switching over to our other engines, which is good because they are not electrically pumped. So lesson learned on the maximum heat temperature on the solar panels. No doubt about that. That is a lesson learned. We would want something like RTGs then, theoretically. And I still want to land on this dark side because I'm very concerned about landing here. That does not seem like a good idea. I'm definitely much more interested in landing on the dark side here. But let's go ahead and burn out this engine. We're at 94% battery, so I'm deeply unconcerned about our battery situation here. Okay. So we're out of fuel for the electrically fed engine now, and we can fire these guys up. Note how this is 0.57 thrust to weight. So first things first, that's inauspicious. Now it's draining from these two simultaneously. Okay, that's absolutely fine. So I want to be filling this tank, and I want to be draining from this tank. There we go. So we're going to need to bring up our thrust to weight here quite a lot. And we may actually have to raise our periapsis and come at this a bit higher up to have a longer burn time. We'll see what that ends up feeling like. Our thrust to weight is currently 0.59. That's going to need to be increased. And yeah, you can see here, it's very cold on this side. So that's understood. Well, let's just finish up this burn here, and we've got about 2 seconds left there. Sure, this'll do. Close enough. And then the question is, how much burn time will we have down to the ground? That's going to be interesting. We may have to raise our orbit up in order to get this landing done. We may need a longer burn. 1890 meters per second. Okay, noted. Well, it is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And next episode, we're going to go for the landing, but we may fail it. And if we do, we'll raise our orbit up, and we'll try again from a slightly higher orbit, I think. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Andy McGard, Dark Horse Xenocyte, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge STL, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.